Okay, today we're going to look at removing the lateral links from a Dodge Neon. Now this is going to work pretty much the same way, regardless of whether you have a first gen or second gen car, doesn't really matter. First step, get that car up nice and high so you got a lot of room to work underneath it. You can see here the problem. You've got that bushing, especially on the second gen cars in my experience, that really wobbles around. Pull off the wheel or wheels if you have to do both sides. I only had to do one. Once you get the wheels off, go ahead and remove the nut that is on the back side of that cross member. Hopefully that won't be a very big deal. If it is, of course, use some penetrating oil. I prefer Croil, and then use some heat. I used quite a bit of heat just to get this whole project started, and I did leave it to sit with some Croil on it for a long period of time. I've had some time with this virus business, so I was able to let it sit for a good long while. One tip to try and free these up, in addition to heat, clear everything out of the trunk if you can. You'd be amazed at how well that cross member transfers heat into the trunk, and you don't want to set the car on fire from the carpet or anything. But give it a whack with a hammer and sit on with the impact a little bit. That'll allow that penetrating oil to get in there, or at least soften up the crud that's at the very edges of the cross member. I do know that this cross member hole goes all the way through. There's not a gap. It's not like it's just those two little studs on the outsides of the cross member. That is one solid steel tube that goes straight through there, if you will. So trying to spray up in the cross member or anything like crazy like that, it's just not going to work. Of course, I got lazy and broke the bolt, so I center punched it, and then I drilled the hole, not really a hole, but a starter hole for it, because I went ahead and finally broke down and bought an air hammer, and the air hammer drove this bolt stub, if you will, pretty well right out. Now again, I did have the Croil sitting in there for some time, so I was able to get it going, and the air hammer drove it out. You can see that the stub was quite corroded and seized up in there. Nothing was going to get that out shy of the air hammer. Again, straight through with no gaps. Once I was done, I went ahead and put some lithium grease on everything just so that I could get in there in the fine spots. The rest I coated down with an anti-seize, pretty high quality one, to be quite honest with you. So I've probably got a couple bucks in anti-seize easily on every single bolt and anything and everything. Anywhere where I could pack this anti-seize, I absolutely positively did, except for the threads on the bolts, as you'll notice. The one thing I did not want is to get it on the threads of the bolts. These things aren't exactly growing on trees anymore. I don't know if anybody's making them again or anything, but last I checked, the only place to get these was from the junkyard. There's a guy on neons.org who goes out in the junkyards in California and tracks them down. So that's where I got these, and they are basically pristine new condition bolts. So I'm going to try and keep these as nice as I can. It'll take a little finagling to get everything back together. Again, with that much corrosion in there, of course there's going to be a few things left over in that channel. Don't rush it, take your time. I use only a dead blow hammer to make adjustments that require any kind of force. Other than that, I'll just use this large ratchet to give it a little spin and pull it in and out just like you would anything else. My last step is to spray her down with some fluid film. I hit the car with this at least once a year, if not twice a year in the winter to begin with, and then I will be getting some of the CRC rust preventative on there when I'm done with an alignment. That stuff is basically a cosmoline, and from what I understand is the best way to go as far as any sort of aerosol can based stuff. So